Welcome to today's Global Connections program. I'm Bill Miller. Why is it important for college students who will be future leaders to be aware not only of their course materials, but also to be sensitive to other cultures and international problems? What are two universities in the United States doing to help achieve these goals through the Semester at Sea program? We'll be back in just a moment to talk about these and other important issues. Welcome back to our program. You're watching Global Connections Television, which is an independently produced program. The opinions expressed on Global Connections are solely those of the moderator and his guest. Today, we're looking at a very unique program called the Semester at Sea, and my guest today is very knowledgeable of this program because he's participated in it for the past several years. My guest today is Dr. Bernie Strenecky. Dr. Bernie Strenecky presently serves as a scholar in residence at Western Kentucky University in Bowling Green, Kentucky, USA, as well as being actively involved in the Semester at Sea program. Dr. Strenecky holds a master's degree from the University of Scranton and a doctoral degree in education and curriculum design from the University of Rochester. Dr. Strenecky has taught or consulted in over 50 countries. Dr. Bernie Strenecky, welcome to today's Global Connections program.
And thank you very much.
I appreciate you being with me today. Let's jump, you got so much to talk about here. We're going to have to move quickly, but let's talk about the Semester at Sea program. This is one that's right now under the auspices of the University of Virginia in Charlottesville, Virginia, but it also has other universities participating. Western Kentucky University in Bowling Green is participating. But what exactly is the Semester at Sea program?
Semester at Sea is a dream, and here's the idea. It's a floating university. What would happen if you went ahead, found 750 of the best students, took 40 faculty members, and went off to sea, and spent an entire semester either circumnavigating the globe or concentrating in a geographic area, taking the curriculum, using it, and studying as you travel?
That sounds like a great, that doesn't even sound like college. That sounds like more like a vacation, but it is. It's very important to do that. You were kind enough to provide a video which will give us a little more insight into the Semester at Sea program. It runs about 1:15 seconds. Let's go to the video, take a look at it, and we'll come back and talk about it.
You've decided to study abroad to gain a global perspective, a necessary asset in today's interconnected world. But how can you gain this insight in a single semester? The answer is Semester at Sea. Dating back to 1963, Semester at Sea is the only program of its kind in the world. Students embark our floating college campus, taking courses, doing field work, and visiting as many as 15 international destinations. This once-in-a-lifetime fast track to global citizenship allows you to do more, see more, and learn more in a single semester than any other program. See why close to 60,000 alumni say Semester at Sea was their most significant college semester. Experience the study abroad program that stands out on your resume and has a lasting value for years to come. There is only one.
Semester at Sea!
That's a very interesting overview of a very interesting and a very unique program. Let's go into when was this program started? Why was it started? I guess we have a good idea of that. And who are some of the luminaries who have participated in the program over the years?
When we begin to talk about tertiary education, Semester at Sea is one of the big ideas, like junior college. And it is now 50 years old, and the reason for it is that comparative education is critical for young minds and young scholars. So the idea is, can you deliver the curriculum better on a ship, seeing various countries rather than concentrating on one? The greatest alumni that we have, and I've had a pleasure of teaching on several occasions, is Bishop Tutu. He is the person who carries the banner. He is the person who really exemplifies what we're all about.
How many students do you normally have participating? Now, this is a year-round program. When one ends, another one starts, but how many students normally do you have participating in, let's say, one launch to sea and visiting X number of countries?
Usually we'll have a little over 700 students with approximately 30 to 40 faculty members.
Mm-hmm. What types of courses are taught? What does your curriculum look like?
Anything that would exist on a regular campus will exist with us. Very, very, plus, of course, you can just imagine things like comparative religion. We're all about comparisons. How do you compare one culture, one country with each other? So, music, it makes no difference. We have it all.
Exactly. Now, I'm sure many of our viewers would like more information on the program. They can go to semesteratsea.org, which is one long word, and get information. And many may want to apply. Now, are there certain criteria that you have to meet? This is not just totally directed to students in the United States. Do you have international students participating also in the program?
Approximately 10% of our student body are international. And I'll tell you what we are looking for. Academic skills are important, as in any university, but we're also looking for people who are world citizens, or want to become world citizens. We say it's all about the learning in a very, very unique way.
Now, one of the main issues, in fact, many political scientists, scientists in general, climate scientists believe that climate change is one of the, if not the number one issue, because we're all confronting it. We all are affected by the climate. The climate is changing. How do you incorporate climate change into your curriculum, and do you have any special programs or projects that focus on dealing with this issue that apparently is accelerating? It's not decelerating, but it's actually getting worse.
Western Kentucky University is sponsoring a symposium on climate change, and the whole idea, and this is how it started, we sat down with our students and asked the question, what is one of the most pivotal and critical questions confronting students today? And it didn't take them very long to begin to talk about this thing called climate change. And this is what they asked. What is it? How is it going to affect my life? How is it going to affect my occupation? And I believe this is absolutely brilliant. They said, here it is. This is our burden. Our generation has created, and they said, now we've inherited it. How do we live with it? How do we understand it? And is there something we can do?
Exactly. And we were talking about the ship a moment ago and climate change, how it affects everybody, all 7.3 billion people on the planet. And your ship is named the MU Explorer and SS Universe. Is that correct? Those are two names that they use for the ship?
The MV Explorer is our official name. And I think it's very, very befitting because this is exactly what we do.
You're exploring.
We explore.
And the universe.
And learn. Yes.
Exactly. It certainly is. Well, it sounds like a very interesting concept. And of course, as we mentioned, focusing on climate change, we've seen that the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, it was set up, I believe, in 1988. They've had 5 studies or so focused on climate change and the detrimental aspects of climate change. 97% of the climate scientists around the world believe that climate change is taking place. They're all not in agreement on what the outcome will be, but they are in agreement that it is detrimental and that the weather patterns are changing. We see the polar bears are losing their habitat, the glaciers are melting, the ice is melting, desertification is taking place around the world. it's really a disaster it's almost like a slow motion car wreck that we see. But it looks to me, or it sounds like your students are very cognizant of this problem and are really dedicated to focusing like a laser on this particular issue, and hopefully coming up with some recommendations or solutions or getting involved in combating climate change.
One of the things is scientists have spent time in trying to figure out why. Our faculty and our students at Western Kentucky said, who cares? What are you going to do about it? Is it natural variability? Is it climate change? Is this the way it is? We really, really don't care about the etiology of the cause. What we are really concerned about is what can we do? How do we adapt? It's here, and let's adapt, and hence the purpose of our symposium.
Mm-hmm. That's a good word, adaptation. And we're starting to see more and more articles, especially with this melting of the glaciers and the rising of the sea levels. You have the cities of New York and Miami, New York City, Miami, Florida, and many more, tens, hundreds, perhaps thousands around the world, are looking at what the detrimental effects could be, especially as the seas start to rise. And we find ourselves in a situation where Florida, which I think is about 6 feet above sea level on average, could very well be underwater by the year 2100. What types of recommendations have the students come up with as far as this adaptation? Have they come up with specifics on what we can do to try to deal with these problems? And we're not going to reverse climate change, it looks like, but how do we adapt to it?
Yeah. They've come to the conclusion it's a very, very complex phenomena. And the first issue will be to understand it, hence the purpose of our symposium. When one goes on this program, they have an option to concentrate. Number one, are you interested in the science of climate change? What do the chemists say, the geologists say? And we have that group. A second group are the economists. What is it going to cost us? What is it going to cost society? If we do something, if we do nothing? Then we have the political science students. What are the various countries through the United Nations? What are they saying about what position are they going to take on it? And then, of course, we have those people who take a look at individuals, the person on the street. What is their perception? And once we gather all the data, we're going to have a wonderful cadre of information which we can go ahead and use to understand and then develop our strategies.
You mentioned the United Nations. It brought to mind the United Nations Millennium Development Goals that were adopted in 2000. These were 8 logical, practical, measurable goals to reduce abject poverty by 2015 by 50%, to promote universal primary school education, to empower women, to reduce infant mortality rates, to reduce maternal mortality rates, to reverse the AIDS pandemic. And number 7 dealt with sustainable development, and number 8 dealt with international cooperation. Do you factor in, I'm sure that many of your courses touch part or a large part of what I mentioned, those 8 goals. How do you look at the United Nations Millennium Development Goals? Is that part of your curriculum, or do you talk about poverty and some other aspect of how to deal with this problem? But are you focusing on the Millennium Development Goals?
What will happen is that each and every one of the students will understand the 8 goals. What are they? Why were they written? And how are we doing? What kind of progress? We know that some countries have met the goals, and there are some countries who have yet to meet their first goal. We believe that climate change is a critical issue, and here is why. When you take the United States, if something happens in Florida, we all scurry and we do something and we react to it. What if that happens to one of the small island nations? It can take away their GNP for the entire year. It's catastrophic for them. So we're beginning to take a look at this from the perspective of small and developing nations as well as the developed country. Very, very different and very interesting work to do. And we hope to have some students from the small island nations working with us and talking about their perception.
Mm-hmm. And there are already islands in the Pacific as well as the Indian Ocean that are seeing the seas rising. They're actually losing ground, and many of these islands are going to be underwater within the next 20 or 30 or 40 years. And these are major problems. But it's excellent that you're focusing on these Millennium Development Goals, because really the countries of the world, you mentioned some have met the goals, others have not, but they're moving in that direction. And of course, the idea is not everybody will hit the finish line at the same time with the same accomplishments, but the point is that they're working toward them. And they've mobilized so many groups, like you and I are involved in Rotary International. Rotary has signed on to some of the major goals. We've got Lions International, the Kiwanis International, faith-based groups, just a variety of groups. Universities, many university students are working in this area. So they have mobilized and galvanized the world and a large number of institutions to focus on them.
And our university is one of those. It's critical, it's important, it's a direction. And again, as we pointed out before, that when a small island nation has a problem, and if they are achieving some of their goals, at that moment, everything is off the table. They're now starting again from zero. And what a critical and important thing to study.
It certainly is, most assuredly. Well, now, we've talked about the Semester C program. Both universities, University of Virginia and Western Kentucky University, have other international programs. Are there one or two others at Western Kentucky University that you might want to mention today? I know you probably have a whole panoply of activities that are going on at that university.
Sure, I'll just give you 3 examples.
Okay.
We're a very interesting university. If one is interested in international things, studying international, one comes to WKU. And this is our goal, this is our challenge, and this is our mission. A leading American university with international reach. And we are very, very serious about that. A second area that we specialize in is things Chinese. We have the flagship program at WKU, which is very, very, very interesting. We have a program of teaching Chinese in our local area, which works out, and we have a Confucius Institute. And then, of course, our third and our newest initiative is this initiative about climate change. What do we do about it? And how, most importantly, how do our students understand what it's all about?
Exactly. Now, as we're talking about Western Kentucky University and the Semester C program, who are some of your other partners? Who do you network with? I know it obviously would depend upon the area of interest and the area you're focusing on, like climate change or whatever, but do you have partners that you work with on an ongoing basis?
Semester at C is obviously a critical, important partner for us. On the climate change, the Center for the Study of Climate Change is in Belize, and they refer to themselves as the 5 Cs, the Caribbean Community Center for Climate Change. They are our partners, and now our newest partners will be the country of Iceland. What would happen if you take scientific organizations, academic organizations, governmental organizations, and attack a problem? This is so interdisciplinary, and it's the only way in which you can go.
Exactly. And you mentioned Iceland. Iceland is a small country, but they have been a major player at the United Nations in focusing the limelight on climate change. Obviously, they're the ones that are going to be adversely affected too, along with all the rest of the countries around the world. Now, if our viewers would like more information on Western Kentucky University, they can go to www.wku.edu and tie into this particular program. You mentioned Belize and what's going on with this climate change center. Who started this in that area? Do you recall? I know that it wasn't Western Kentucky probably, I guess, but do you recall how it got set up in Belize? I'm just curious about that particular country.
Yes, I have been involved with the 5 Cs for over 10 years, and it was the Caribbean community. They recognized that it was critical. They recognized it was important. And they got together some of the finest scientists in the world. This is where some of the finest climate change scientists in the world are housed. And what they want to do is to understand the phenomena, and then how do you use that information for those predominantly very small countries? How do they use this information in dealing with this phenomena called climate change? And that was the beginning. They then brought on partners, and hence Western Kentucky University, which now serves as a scientific advisors to much of the work in which they are doing. good example of this collaboration and the interdisciplinary nature of this problem.
Now, I mentioned Rotary a moment ago, and you've been a member of the Prospect Goshen Rotary Club for many, many years. You also have been involved in a program to reach out to help folks in developing countries. It involves a small amount of money, $100. What exactly is that program, and how does it operate, and why did you start it?
It's called the $100 Solution. And here's what happened, Bill, and how it started. If a student is fortunate enough to go to a university, they have a moral responsibility to give back to society. And the students wanted to, but they had little or no idea on how to do it. When I was invited to teach on Semester at Sea, I started a course called the $100 Solution. And here it is. Students work in small groups. They take a look at cultural and social problems. They analyze the problem. They get to understand it. They get involved with the problem. And then they pop the big question. Ma'am or sir, I only have $100. What could I do with this $100 to enhance the quality of life of your village, your town? Well, by its very nature, it has grown. And one of the most fascinating things, it's run by 5 individuals, a board of directors, a worldwide organization, and the oldest person is 26 years old. What would happen if a group of people in the early 20s take on the world, and these people and these students see that this is part of their responsibility? So we teach social responsibility, problem solving, and the fact that you don't need millions of dollars. You can solve problems with small amounts of money.
And that's the thing that we need to keep in mind, excuse me, about the developing countries, because so much can be accomplished with a very small amount of money. We look at the Grameen Bank that was set up by Mohammed Yunus several years ago, and that is a good example of small loans that go out primarily to women, but also some to men, where they can develop their own little business. They can develop a bicycle shop or become a seamstress or whatever the case might be. And so much can be accomplished for a very small amount of money. And I guess you've seen example after example in this program.
Yes, we now have literally hundreds of projects all over the world. We're in 13 countries around the world, multiple universities. And you're right, students believe that if we ever named it the $5,000 solution, it would never ever work with the youth. $100 is meaningful. When you're in your early 20s, it's something you know about. It's something that is tangible, and it shows them that you can indeed make a change. We can all make a change, and it doesn't take an inordinate amount of money.
Before we run out of time, let me ask you, how did you become an honorary consul of Barbados, an island in the Caribbean? We were talking about the Caribbean a few minutes ago, but you've been very involved in that area of the world. But you are the honorary consul of Barbados to the state of Kentucky, I guess?
Yes.
How did that happen?
Oh, it's an interesting story. I have worked with the Organization for American States for a long time throughout the region. And I had a very interesting project with the country of Barbados. In fact, many interesting projects. And this one involved the bringing of teachers from Barbados to Jefferson County, Louisville, and where it was very, 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 very successful. At the completion of that, I was then asked, would you like to represent Barbados? And I'm very, very happy and honored. And since then, we've had countless projects with a very, very interesting country, and it gives me a unique perspective on how things are done in that part of the world, which is one of my areas of specialty.
Well, as you look at these programs, and if we both look at the programs, it's obvious that so much has been accomplished with them. The Semester at Sea program is a truly unique program. The other program you're talking about, the $100 program, is very unique. And it's so important that we all get mobilized and look at these different problems and involve young people too, because so often we lead a sheltered life, especially if we're in a university or wherever it might be. But if you're interacting with people from around the world, you stand in somebody else's shoes, you look at problems from another perspective, we develop a greater appreciation for them, and I think we can all develop links that will help us to work on these problems in the future. But Dr. Bernie Strenecky, I want to thank you so very much for a very interesting and a very informative program.
And thank you.
Thank you. I'm Bill Miller. Thank you for joining us on today's Global Connections program.